with you since you're
I
Rekelsmother?
wanted to hear Wilson's resilience. I wanted to test it, actually. Gee, what can... Well,
do you guys want me to leave?
I've been at it longer than he has, but I've had... Wilson's an actor, and a very good actor, and adorable, and I've been a writer I was a child actor, but I was actually a child model for Lane Bryant. It's a very ugly story. There were not enough fat women to buy their clothes. They had to have a fat kids line, and I was the charming chub, they called me. So that was my actual introduction. And then I was a child actor, but I was never a child star, or we'd all be in rehab now having this conversation. So I went from that into writing because I discovered when I would audition for people, I would discover that I was in the same room with like Paul Sorvino and guys who were older and fatter and with deeper voices. And
is that even possible?
Yeah, I was like 14, and I'd be sitting there, and there would be Jimmy Castellano,
be like, hello,
from The Godfather. Yeah. So, I thought I'm reading for the same part. So I wrote about it. I had a journalism career. I decided to attack it that way, and I went to the Chicago Tribune, and I began writing about show business. I met Bette Midler. She was just starting out, and I began writing for her. And as I say, I've been writing for her for 40 years, which is difficult because she's only 35. I'm contractually obligated to mention that. So when Bette hit, I began getting a lot of offers from other people to write for them. And as a journalist, I was interviewing all of them as they came through town. So I built up a portfolio of people I was writing for. And after 5 years, I was writing for Lily Tomlin and Richard Pryor and George Carlin and Joan Rivers and some people not as brilliant. I had Donnie and Marie. I did Sonny and Cher. I did their stuff from when Chaz was fetal. I did that. Chaz has changed her sex. Have you heard that?
No.
Really? I wasn't sure. In case you hadn't, I thought It's because it's under-publicized.
It's under the radar.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody knows. But and then that led to a TV series that got me out to California, where I have since stayed. And then about 12 years ago, they brought Hollywood Squares back, and they asked me to be the head writer, and they asked Whoopi to be the center square, and she said she thought I should be a square, and they thought that's crazy, so they didn't want to piss her off early in the relationship, because you don't want to piss off Whoopi in any part of your life. So they tested me with a lot of very handsome guys with big teeth. Good. This is for the win, Suzanne. And they said, well, he's not going to be the host. Put him in a square next to her. And I think they thought I would tame her by being in the square next to her.
Is that even possible?
No, of course not. But for 6 years, we had a good time. And when you're on television every night, you get offered everything. I mean, you get offered, just wait till you see. There'll be the Amanda Knox Variety Hour before it's over.
Oh,
they offer you everything. And so I became a public personality. And it has held on since then. And I went back to acting because of Hollywood Squares. I did Hairspray for 2 years, a year on the road and a year on Broadway. I shaved for it. And so when you talk about resilience, I guess the idea is I just kind of went with what happened. If I was guilty of anything, it was I never said no. And because I wanted to have all those experiences, and I was fascinated by the process of show business and working at it behind the scenes and in front of the camera. I found it all kind of fascinating, and so I didn't limit myself to anything. And I also was always out because I had been encouraged as a kid to be flamboyant and unique and eccentric, because those were things that were prized in the theater, and because I never was in a position where they were going to ask me to kiss the girl. I was never going to be the romantic lead. I had the comfort of being able to establish an identity as a gay person, and there wasn't any real questioning of it. If anything, there would be just ignoring it, the way they ignored Paul Lynde, and they ignored Richard Simmons, and they ignored Charles Nelson Riley, and they ignored all those people. They were asexual, and I found myself in that group, which is great, except when you want to get laid, and then they all look, oh well, he's asexual. I've seen that. But as a result, I never experienced the kind of thing that I'm sure Wilson will talk about, which is being an out actor and going up for those kinds of parts where they say you have to convince us that the audience will believe you, when you go after the girl or when you kill the bad guy. You can't be James Bond if you're going to then go have, if Dr. No is going to plank you, later on. Well, I'm sorry, was that too vulgar a vernacular? In any event, so whenever I get some kind of an award for being out and for having been around for so long, I always say it was easy for me to maintain this. The people who it's difficult for are the people in the real world, the accountants, the surgeons, all of those people who have to deal with the bigotry that I didn't have to deal with. And so I'm accepting an award under false pretenses usually. Wilson, I'm sure, has a different story because he's an out actor and he can kiss the girl.
I could kiss the girl, yes. I have not kissed the girl.
Come here, honey.
That would be kissing the girl. Hey, girl.
Sorry, I can't hear you over the snapping.
with the you, hey, girl. This is one of those mics you have to put on your
I know,
mouth.
yeah.
So
Nothing.
But I honestly, and this is not just saving face. The roles of which would ask me to kiss the girl are of less interest to me. Anyway, to be honest with you, and I think it's because of the fact that my career publicly started with a role that changed the trajectory of what my career was going to be, and thankfully, and I'm thankful for it. And what I mean by that is that early on, I was fortunate enough to experience what it was like to be a part of something and to be a part of a project in which it wasn't just about the acting or the script. It was about how this role and how this show was going to affect people, and what it was that we were able to say and do on that show for others.
Are you talking about My So-Called Life?
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
On My So-Called Life, sorry, yes. And so...
Everybody here ever seen that series? Adore, love,
Thanks.
love that show.
Me too. And so my point is that I wasn't just playing a role. I felt like I was being of use, and that I was being used in a good way, and that I got to use my art and this gift that I feel I have and that I've been given to actually do something with, and have a voice and have an opinion and help others see themselves through me. And the part that I was playing. And so because of that experience early on, I feel like I've continually sought out opportunities like that. They haven't always been that, I have taken roles in which, I took in order to, pay my very expensive New York rent. And and there's nothing wrong with that. But the roles that have meant the most to me that I cherish the most are the ones in which I felt of use, which were My So-Called Life, Rent, and Party of Five, and any number of those independent films in which I felt like I paid them to do. But resilience for me is I feel like came out of a sense of fearlessness. I think as an actor, as an openly gay actor, as a gay Latino actor, you have to have a sense of fearlessness, because if you get caught up in the fear, that is obviously there, of whether or not you're ever going to work again, if you're going to be able to pay your bills, and if you give in to that, I don't think you'll last. So there's a sense of fearlessness that I pride myself in. And a willingness to do anything once. Shut up.
You know what? I heard it too.
I know.
I heard it coming too.
We've known each other a very long time. And so, and then I think
You mean you won't do that thing again that we did?
no.
Near that place where that
That
thing
was
where you
really-
went that time, yeah.
And you know, and I also think that I've continuously wanted to challenge myself in one way or another. You know, when I finished My So-Called Life, it would have been very easy to just go and continue to do like guest star roles, which I happily did later on. But you know, I wanted to come back to New York and do theater, and Rent afforded me that opportunity, and now I'm back in New York and hoping to do even more of it because that's where my heart is. So, you know, I think if you don't give into the fear and you're willing to try anything, you can last a very long time. As long as you're, and here's that word that everybody seems to be using these days, as long as you're in touch with who you authentically are and what you authentically want to do.
Which leads very nicely into the next question I wanted to pose to you both. I love that. We didn't even plan this at all. We literally didn't, actually. So exposure being another of the themes here. When you think about the stereotypes of our community, we're supposed to be funny. We're supposed to entertain people. We're supposed to be fabulously, you know, in design and to make things pretty. I determined earlier today that if you're a lesbian, you're also supposed to be a lawyer. I don't know why I know so many lesbian lawyers, but I do. Strange. I can tell my mother I can meet a nice Jewish lawyer. Maybe she'll be happy. Maybe. In synagogue tonight, maybe. But when you think about these stereotypes and kind of playing into the roles that we have and how that exposes us, you know, on a personal level. Maybe you could talk a little bit about, as you've gone through your career, you know, you've been an openly out gay actor since the very beginning. You know, you've been openly out because that's just how you were. How do you perceive that as having evolved your career? You know, I mean, in terms of, don't you love at the end of the day when your brain really stops working? When you think about the way people perceive the community, right? And you think about the stereotypes that are there. I mean, stereotypes to a certain degree exist for a reason. I have family in Boca Raton, Florida, for example. But at the, I know, you can laugh at it. It's okay. It's okay.
Any lawyers in the family?
No.
No.
No. But their families, so oh, never mind, you're not going there. But when you think about how we can break out of those stereotypes by being more authentically ourselves,
My first thought, right away, I think about, because you were describing these stereotypes as you began the question. You said funny, entertaining, and what was the other one?
fashion and design.
Fashion and design. So I'm playing this new role
Yeah.
on this series called
Funny, entertaining fashion designer.
He's literally like,
How do you like that?
you know, like he's like the funny. He talks like this. He's a New Yorker. He's you know, he sells shoes and you know, they're fake. They're counterfeit. And you know, on the page, it could be like really offensive. I could probably see how it's offensive, but I kind of adore him. And I think that's the key. Here's the answer to the question. The key to it is, you know, he's a person to me. Like, I know who this guy is. I'm related to him. I kind of am him. He's a hustler. You know what I mean? He's somebody who's trying to make stuff happen, and he's just trying to get ahead, and sometimes it's illegal, and but. You know, it's about not playing the stereotype. It's about playing the circumstances, and his circumstances are, you know, he needs to get things going because he's just out there for himself, you know, and he just happens to be from, you know, Brooklyn, and he's Puerto Rican, and he's gay, and so, you know, that's the world that he comes from. He talks like this, you know. His sister is Rosie Perez. And so, you know, it's about not playing the stereotype. It's about making this person real and their circumstances real. And that's the key.